There we go. All right. So, welcome to the Client First Capital Learning Channel. And today I'm here with Alex.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about the Britney Spears conservatorship. I guess it's been in the media quite a bit, right, Alex?
That's right. That's all that we're hearing about on the news, it seems.
Yeah, right. So before we get started, let me share our disclosures. Oops, entire screen share. Let's see if I'm doing this right. Do you see? Oops.
I do. I see the slide.
Yeah. All right. So we haven't taken your accounts or your specific situation into account. We're just doing general educational material. If you have any questions specific to your situation, please engage with us in an actual relationship, which since no agreement has been formed, we're not doing that now. Anything to add, Alex?
So just to reiterate, this is, at least on my part, legal marketing, and so there is no attorney-client relationship either. So it's purely informational.
Perfect. So I guess before we start, we should kind of talk about how this all happened. So like I guess in 2008, 2009, Britney Spears' dad placed a conservatorship, right?
Right. And so a lot of your listeners may remember that during that time, so this was 2008, that's when Britney Spears, people were saying like, oh, she went crazy. She shaved her head. She went with the bat and was like beating up on the cars. I mean, she was kind of losing it. At least that was the perception that was being given in the media. Right.
Right.
And,
like mental health concerns, life events and stuff like that. Right.
Exactly. So it was on the heels of all of those incidents that were coming out. And then at the time, I would say, like, I also was in agreement. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, Britney, she went a little crazy there, a little cray-cray, like the conservatorship of the person and of the estate. So that was, full disclosure, that was my opinion back then. Flash forward 13 years, I don't have that same opinion. And looking back, I don't know if, Amar, if you had an opportunity to see that Britney Spears documentary that had come out. Did you see that?
No, unfortunately, I haven't.
You didn't see that? So I saw it, and it was an interesting take on how, if those same events had been occurring now, because of so many movements that have been going on with the Me Too and just, more empowerment for women, even though you'd think like, oh, it was 2000s, like, women equality is like, well, yeah, but looking back, it's like, not really. And the way that Britney was treated in the media, I would say that the documentary's take was that, given everything, that all the pressures and the biases, that the way she was treated versus like her male celebrity stars, it seems reasonable to think, well, yeah, of course she lost it. She was constantly having the paparazzi in her face, like, her ex was threatening to take away her kids, and these mental breakdowns weren't helping the case any. But anyway, so all of this to say that back in 2008, yes, you're right, Amar, a conservatorship was requested by her dad, and it was granted. And what has happened, though, is that 13 years later, she's still under this conservatorship. And you may, and perhaps your listeners have also been following the whole Free Britney movement, right? And
yeah,
so,
I'm gonna just bring that up. Like, there's like now with like, you have viral sensations, you have TikTok, you have all these other platforms that are now providing a Free Britney type movement in terms of getting her out of this conservatorship, right? Like,
right. And what's so interesting about that is that this had started like a couple years ago, and it was just kind of like it started like a small movement. And then she would always, Britney would deny it and say, no, I'm happy, I'm fine. And then recently, just over the course of the last couple months, she came out and said, no, I thought I was trying to like convince myself that I was okay with this, and I'm actually not. And it seems like she has a really contentious relationship with her dad. And just to put this in perspective, so Britney has been under the conservatorship for 13 years. And during the time of this conservatorship, she has released 4 albums. She has gone on multiple world tours. She had a Las Vegas residency for the last few years, and she did like 250 or close to 250 shows. And so it was almost like a show every night, right? And she was also appearing on TV as a judge on The X Factor. So it's interesting to think like, okay, someone who's on a conservatorship because she's unable to manage her finances and or make personal decisions for herself, that seems really accomplished, right?
I mean, that's a lot of stuff to do. Yeah. I mean, you and I are trying to do one YouTube video a week, and we can't even do this like a fixed schedule like that. And
precisely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And so my mind is kind of blown about this. And so right now I'm not here to like give you the full recap on like all of the legal proceedings that have happened in Britney Spears conservatorship. I'm sure your listeners can easily like Google that and
Google that stuff. Right. Yeah.
But
I mean, I think one thing we should talk about though is conservatorship. There's a financial side and there's a personal side too, right? I mean,
precisely. Yes. So there are 2 sides. You're absolutely right. And Britney Spears has both of those instituted in her case. So there's a conservator of the person and a conservator of the estate. And so the conservator of the person, as the name implies, that's the person that makes medical decisions for you, that takes care of anything having to do with your physical well-being. That would be encompassed by the conservator of the person. And then the conservator of the estate, that's the person who's making all of the financial decisions. And so in this situation, Britney has both types of conservators instituted, a conservator of the person and a conservator of the estate. I think at one point her dad was both of those things. Right now, he's just the conservator of the estate, and she has somebody else who's acting as, I think what I had last read is it's an attorney Montgomery or fiduciary Montgomery. She is acting as conservator of the person, but it's a temporary thing because Mr. Spears, Britney's dad, refuses to resign as the full-on conservator of the person. So in any event, there is somebody else acting as conservator of the person that's not Britney Spears' dad. And then Britney Spears' dad is right now in full control of conservator of the estate. And that's what Britney is trying to do. She wants him out. It sounds like she has a really, really contentious relationship with her dad, and she just does not want him there. And he's profited quite a bit. I was reading that by most reports, he has paid himself from 2008. He's accumulated about $5 million.
I mean, that's a lot of money for doing that role, right?
Exactly. And so I can't say that I don't quite understand like all that's going on with this case. And I think part of the issue here is that in order to get, because perhaps your listeners are like, oh my God, how do we avoid this? Or how did this happen? Because, Britney Spears seems right now kind of as a high functioning person. But so here's the thing, back in 2008, the way that a conservator of the person or of the estate gets established, it's through medical evaluations, right? And so if a doctor does an evaluation and concludes that you do not have capacity to either take care of yourself, your person, or take care of your estate, it could be one or both. In this case for Britney, it was both. Then that's the proof that the court needs in order to approve a petition. So for example, if someone, Amar, if I tried to do a conservator of the person or of the estate over you and I went to court, well, that's going to get rejected pretty quickly because you don't have any medical, at least not to my knowledge, I'm not going to be able to get a medical assessment of you saying, oh yeah, Amar is not able to take care of himself or his finances. And that's really where the most of us are going to fall. But in a situation like with Britney, where we saw publicly her mental breakdown, I don't think that's hard to believe that at that time there were doctors who were saying, yeah, she's not able to take care of herself or her finances. And so the thing that's interesting, though, is that back in 2008, her medical records were sealed. And so we still don't know what it was that amounted to enough proof for the court to approve that petition for a conservator. And what's even more interesting is that as much as Britney does not want her conservatorship anymore, the easiest way for her to get rid of it would be to undergo another medical evaluation and have a doctor say she's completely fine, she can go forward. And then with that, that should be enough to refute it. But what's interesting is that for whatever reason, Britney does not want to undergo another medical evaluation. And so that's, she wants to just have this conservatorship dispelled just because she is telling the court that this has been abusive. But unfortunately, that by itself is not going to be enough. And so hopefully Britney's team is going to be able to convince her that you really need to undergo this medical evaluation. And I'm sure she had a negative experience in the past, which is, explains why she doesn't want to do this. But there is a way for her to get rid of it. It's just she's going to need medical testimony to refute whatever the circumstances were back in 2008.
Yeah. And I mean, this is hard. I mean, just emotionally going through all this. But I think the thing that we were saying is a key thing that people should take away. Conservatorships are a serious thing. And, getting in one is difficult, right? Because, like, the courts are involved, etc., medical releases and whatnot. But then also equally hard is getting out of one, right? And so,
and so here's the takeaway: how do we avoid this, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. Let's end on that.
So the quick answer on that is you do an estate plan. And then you don't have to rely on things like conservatorships or the judge making a decision or appointing someone that you don't want, because you have, you would have your trust, you would have your financial power of attorney, and you would have your medical power of attorney and living will, all working together with people that you trust, that you want making these decisions. And so you've kind of taken it out of the judge's hands. Now you don't need a judge to make those decisions for you or to appoint somebody. You've put it down in writing. So that is the best way to avoid all of this. And if Britney had an estate plan, theoretically she wouldn't be in this mess.
Yeah, so I think we should end on that, is that having basic documents today while you're able, they don't have to be perfect, but as long as you have them, then at least you have a plan in place so that you don't have to depend on the court system and whatnot. So
that's exactly right.
If somebody needs help, reach out to Alex. And if you guys have any questions, comments, please leave them below, because we do read them and we do try to answer as many as we can. Thank you.
Bye.